Okay, fine. So now we are doing structural programming or procedural programming. And if you want to work on OData, the system automatically creates some artifacts and we are actually forced to work in the terms of OOPs. So this is one advantage or one prerequisite for us to actually go into OOPs. Now, what if we are not doing OData and something else like workflow? Okay. Does workflow has anything to do with OOPs in normal terms? It is. For example, if we create a template here,
Okay.
I have to work on workflows. There are two types of workflows in which Virendra, I think he's working on one type, right? BO method.
Yeah. So BO.
Correct. So there is also another way, which is nothing but class-based workflows. Okay. So here in this class-based workflows, if you go to activity, the system will give us a provision. Let me create a task. Okay. Okay. Now, this is BO or object type. Okay. And if you go here, there is another option called ABAP class. So inherently, you're also learning to work with workflow and OData if you're learning OOPs. Okay. So not only this, you'll be writing OOPs ALVs. And also, for example, if you choose your path to go into UFI, even there, everything is in OOPs. Correct? So there is no other way that we should not learn OOPs. If not today, tomorrow, because in the long run, because I have seen people with 10 years experience and they are doing structural programming. In the future, everyone should be able to use OOPs, and we should go to that concepts because we are in par with Java and also PHP in programming language. Initially, when I started, there was only emphasis on structural programming, but now with the increase of the technologies like BTP, okay, BAS, all these technologies are related to front end. Currently, I'm working on UEFI, and everything like starting from JSON model or all these things are heavily depending on OOPs or OOPs ABAP only and only OOPs. So we need to get comfortable in OOPs, which we will eventually do. So guys, what do you think the evolution of ABAP came from? Like from which language did we evolve ABAP? It came from COBOL, as far as I know, and after that it is loosely modeled from C. So what SAP guys in 1972 they did was they have seen all the programming languages which are already famous by the time, okay, and they took good things from COBOL and C. Even if you see now, if you go into these programs, there will be a bit of similarity. That was for procedural or structural programming language. So we have evolved from basically machine languages till Python. PHP is completely on OOPs. Java, that's fine because we have desktop apps as well as web apps. .NET has active server pages, ASP. C Sharp. C Sharp is for normal desktop apps, and ASP is generally used for web programming. Ruby on Rails. Perl. So these are one of the programming languages which are currently in the market, and the old COBOL and all these are replaced by these programming languages. And even now C is been replaced with C++ just because C++ is object oriented. So we have evolved from machine languages where it takes only binary to now completely dynamic programming. So what was the change? Like what they had initially and what is the change? There are three changes. One is having a variable name. Initially, there was nothing called a variable name. People used to write in binary. It will be like this. Every line, binary code is more or less like this: 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0. So here it is 0, it is 1, it is 2. 1 1 is 2 and 1 0 is 3. So similarly, they have keywords for all the keys on the keyboard. Like for example, if it is Z, Z, it would be something else for comma. So initially they used to write in this way, but when they were variable names, things changed. We are able to now name the variable and probably use those variable in other places as well. After that, conditional statements. This is also very important. Like instead of writing 500 lines of code and after that realizing, boss, this is not the code or this is not the result which I wanted because the condition was completely different, we can have conditional statements. And if I have 1,000 lines of code, we can put an if else and then have 500 lines here and 500 lines in the else statement without actually executing this thing. Just with just one query, we are able to move ahead. Initially, it was like this. Once again, I'm just reminding. So we have come from that till variable names, control statements, and callable functions. So this is very, very, very important. For example, if I have a method, okay, fine. If I am doing a calculator application, if I'm doing a calculation application and I have to do sum, I have two variables, variable 1, variable 2, where I'm doing variable 1 plus 2. So what if I'm writing the same code every time I am using a sum operation? Instead, I can have something called sum where I pass in the two variables peacefully, and then inside of it, write the sum operation and return the sum, so that I will be using this method in all the places. So these three are the main changes which actually took place after the machine language evolution. Now, from these small changes, we are now moving into objects, in which classes and objects are play the main role. Now, what is a class? A class is a collection of methods and attributes which are designed to solve one real-time operation, one real-time complex problem. You can call this problem anything. Like for example, if you are doing a building, if you are constructing a building, you can have class as building. Okay. If you are working for a soda company, the classes would be on, the class would be soda and the objects are cool drinks. Each cool drink, whenever you buy that, it will be the same throughout, right? Because that is an object of an existing class with similar attributes and different data. We will see that also when we do one real-time operation. So what are objects? Anyone? What could be an object? Fine. So basically, object is nothing but it is also a variable which has characteristics and behavior. So now, what is a characteristic and what is a behavior? Let me tell you. For example, my object is duck. Okay. It has a color yellow. It has a specific color and the behavior would be it quacks, swim, paddle. So now it has a specific color, it weighs something. Okay. It would have certain age. So these would be the characteristics and the behavior would be the sound, what all it can do. So these two combinedly are called an object. So object will have characteristics and also behavior. This is true for all the objects. You can take anything like a real-time object. If you can call anything and you can place anything into an object basically. So behavior, for example, if there is a class object called man, okay, he has some characteristics, how he looks or the physical features or whatever, and then the behavior like walk, talk. We can take these two things as behaviors, and also the characteristics would be mustache, beard, hair, whatever. So I hope you understood what an object is, more or less. And then the behaviors and everything are defined in a class. So the class would have all the behaviors and characteristics. Object is exactly an instance of that class. The characteristics or attributes of an object are used to describe the state of an object. Now we know what a characteristic is. The attributes is nothing but the data which it consumes. Let me quickly show what is the data. Okay, so how do we declare the classes? Okay, so let me you can work on oops in like there are two types. One is in the report in the SC38 transaction you can work in oops. So this is for ALVs and all things. And also does anyone know the transaction code to work with classes in ABAP?
SC24.
So this is where we spend most of the time. This is where as an ABAPer in future we will spend most of the time in SC24 to create abstract classes, normal classes, interfaces.
Oh.
So let me just show you what a normal, what a class consists of and how do we consume the classes. How do we use the classes in a basic way for today, and tomorrow we will create the same thing in SC24 as well. So fine. Now to create a class, we will have a class name, and then every class in SAP comprises of two things. This is very mandatory. One is the definition and one is the implementation. Once again, to create a class in SC38, there are two important things to remember. One is every class will have definition and an implementation. So this is how SAP has designed the SAP the class structure for SAP. Okay. In SC38, they have designed it in this way. Okay. So for now, we can ignore final and also create public. We will only concentrate on definition. Okay. Fine. Now I'm coming to the public section. So this is all normal core ABAP. We are declaring some variable. Here comes the fun part. I'm defining a method called fill itab, wherein I have a written variable of type this, but I'm not writing the code here. We don't have the code in the definition part. So where do we have the code then? So that would be in implementation. You see? So definition only comprises of methods, attributes. That's it. No code. In the implementation, we write the code for all the methods here, and the parameters are already defined. The parameters are already defined. Like for example, if I have a method called fill itab, what does it do? it returns a value, it returns an internal table of type itab data type. Let me go to that. So it is returning me some internal table. Let me add another method called add to itab, which is returning me an updated internal table. So here, what I'm doing is a very simple example. I have a method which will load 6 rows initially. So it is loading 6 rows initially. And when I call this method, my internal table will have 6 rows. Now, there is another method called add to itab, which takes the initial internal table and it will add just 1 row to this. So let us see how this actually works in real time. So start of selection, we all are aware of anyway we know start of selection. And after that, to create an object, to use this class in my SA38, what I need to do is, I need to create an object to use class methods in my program. There are 2 ways. One way is to create an object. Second way would be is to call static methods of the class directly. For now, we are not doing method 2. We will only go with method 1, or we will create an object to use the methods of a class. Just let me repeat once again. So if, for example, if there is any class and if I want to use those methods in the class, we need to create an object. Is this is clear, right?
Yeah.
Without object, we will be not able to call the methods. There is another way which I will show you tomorrow of how to call a static method. But for now, this is important. So there are 2 steps. One is we will declare an object of type the class, and then we create the object of that type. So this is a very important step. So let me tell you. So this is the old syntax. And the old syntax, what SAP is doing is, it is creating a variable which is of type the class which we want. And after that, it is saying the compiler that to create an object. This is the old type. Does anyone know how do we create a class, sorry, an object in Java or something? Does anyone have any idea? LOBJ is equal to new. So this is new syntax.
Okay.
We can either go with this syntax or we can go with this syntax. For example, if you're in support projects, most probably you will be seeing the data like this. They will have data and also create. But now, as SAP is evolved and we are in SAP 7.5 and beyond, SAP has given us an advantage of having it in one line only peacefully. Okay.
Oh.
Now, I'll just comment this for now. We will just learn the old method and then we will progress to new method. Fine. So now what I'm doing is I want to call this method called fill itab, which is just loading all this data into my internal table, which is of this value. So in the debug, let us see how am I calling this and what is this internal declaration. We all know internal declarations, right? Inline declarations and all. Okay, fine. I'll tell you what here I'm doing is, here this method will return me an internal table. As this is a returning parameter, I can declare the variable here. Is this clear, or shall I tell once again? Usually methods have import and export, correct?
Yes, yes.
But what if I only have one receiving parameter? Okay, I have only one export. What if I have only one export parameter? I will call this as receiving. So for example, if I have only one export parameter, I will make this as receiving, where I can use it like this. I mean, I can call the method like this. So usually what will happen is in SAP, we are calling, okay, let me just comment this. I'll show you the traditional way. Okay. The traditional way to call a method is call method, object name, and then you check for the itab, and then you do a control space. Now you see receiving an initial, right?
Okay.
So normally what will happen is, if I'm not giving this as receiving, it will be importing, basically. Importing some internal table, and in the fill itab method, what I will do is, in the fill itab method, I will call this as exporting. Usually, this is a normal protocol which we actually use. So this is, if this is exporting, I have the value and itab. But what I'm doing is, I only have one value which I'm just returning as internal table. That's the reason I had to use returning. Okay. And that object, I am defining the data here itself. Instead of declaring a variable and then doing all these things, I'm just declaring it in one line. I will do one thing. In SC24, I will create the same example. Okay. And then show you the advantage of having returning, exporting, and all these things. I mean, there is an advantage of using returning, where we can declare the value on the go. I mean, we can declare the variable on the go. Like for example, here only I'm declaring, see, or else what would I have done? This internal table, I would have declared it like this. You see? So we are cutting all these extra steps and calling it in this way. So let us go step by step then. Okay. Maybe if it is a bit confusing, let us go step by step. But for now, we will just see the one output of what this is, like what this example is actually doing. Okay. And then we'll go step by step. So first, what will happen is, start of selection. First, I am creating a variable named object X, for which I will create an object. Now this object will have control of all these methods. Like I can call all these methods, whatever is available in this class, I will be able to access. Okay. So that is point number one. And also whatever variables are there in public section, I will be able to use that as well. So now I'm calling a method called fill itab. Now it went to the section called implementation, correct?
Yes.
Because I have already declared it here in the definition. So now I have a definition. I have a method called fill itab. If we do this, all the 6 lines are loaded. And now as this variable is a returning variable, I am collecting that return variable in this variable. You see, now I am returning all these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'll go to the